Part 9. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 81. Jennifer and Henry walk side by side at the front, with the cavalry in the middle and Rudolph and Yvonne at the back. The team walked into the wilderness. When passing Sir's farm, Rudolph never saw so many black aphids again. The police station organized several campaigns against the evil god's high priests, and the results were good. At least the number of aphids was reduced a lot. After that, farmers started spraying themselves and controlled the insect infestation. However, don't count on this year's autumn harvest. It would be nice to get some crooked melons and cracked jujubes. During a break on the road, Jennifer came to the end of the line. The proud knight Henry did not bother to sit on the ground like ordinary cavalry. He had special servants to serve him. Of course, he didn't even bother to have a good relationship with the local police station. After sitting next to Rudolph and Yvonne, Jennifer stared at the fire, wondering what she was thinking. After a while, Rudolph asked quietly, "Jennifer, can you tell me how you were promoted? How can we help you?" Jennifer shook her head. "You can't help me. The promotion of a knight is a matter between the knight and his cavalry. Knights believe in the principle of extremes, and only when they are close to the extreme can they unleash their greatest potential. Knights and cavalry must be in dangerous situations and unleash all the power contained in their bodies. This power is also called ultimate power. Then with the help of the cavalry, that is, with the help of the guardian chain that you saw last time, he gathered the ultimate strength and improved his power level, thus breaking through the level restrictions in one fell swoop and becoming a high-level knight. Can't this process be completed on the training ground? Fighting werewolves is still very dangerous after all. No, the power provided by the cavalry under normal conditions is essentially different from the ultimate power. Sometimes, the quality of the cavalry is more important than the quantity. Therefore, the cavalry must also squeeze the last strength of the body under extreme circumstances in order to give knight provides more pure ultimate power. Rudolph glanced at the cavalry and remembered all the cavalry who were killed last time. Sir Jakes's cavalry died to provide Jakes with ultimate strength. When the knight does not need to be promoted, the knight can increase the strength of all cavalry through the guard chain. However, when the knight needs to be promoted, those cavalry are like the toothpaste in the knight's hand. They need to be squeezed until they shrink and deform in order to provide the ultimate strength that the knight needs. Soon, on the third night after leaving the castle, the howling of wolves could be heard. For the cavalry, the atmosphere suddenly became tense. As they were about to enter the second half of the night, they finally found traces of a group of werewolves. Rudolph looked at the footprints on the ground, actually making a show of it. From the spiritual pet crystal, Rudolph had already seen the traces of the werewolf, not far ahead. 12 werewolves, 1 level 1 werewolf, and 11 wolf servants, heading northeast. After hearing Rudolph's judgment, Jennifer led the team to the northeast. At this point, Jennifer asked Henry to stay at the end of the line. If there is a fight, Jennifer needs to go it alone and cannot get help from others. Henry wants to destroy these 12 werewolves. Not to mention it is easy, but it will definitely not squeeze his ultimate strength. I didn't expect you to know something about werewolves. Henry saw that Rudolph could judge the number of werewolves based on their footprints, and then he felt that the two people in front of him were somewhat capable. At least as guides, they could quickly find the werewolves. Since he couldn't be with Jennifer, Henry could only come to Rudolph and Yvonne. Rudolph didn't answer him and walked forward on his own. Henry didn't say anything more, but asked the horse to walk a few steps quickly and walked in front of Rudolph, separating the cavalryman and Rudolph. It seems Henry is more worried about two patrolmen sabotaging Jennifer's promotion. Half an hour later, no more wolves were heard in the woods. This proved that the werewolf also discovered the cavalry behind him and began to quietly approach the cavalry. In a clearing in the woods, Jennifer ordered the team to stop and wait for the werewolf. We'd better stay further away and not interfere with Jennifer's promotion. Henry patted his horse and turned his head, staring at Rudolph and Yvonne, motioning for them to stay away as well. Rudolph estimated the effective range of the bullet and stepped back a little. Level 1 Werewolf, 11 Wolf Servants. Knight Retinue, 15 Cavalry. Jennifer's only chance of winning is that she successfully gets promoted to a level 1 knight in this battle. The werewolves were very fast. After they rushed out of the grass, they bypassed Jennifer and rushed towards the flank of the cavalry. Those shaky novice cavalry are obviously weaker opponents. This is the habit of werewolves: first attack the old, weak, sick, and disabled of the enemy, and then slowly eliminate the others. Not long after, the cavalry's painful screams came out in the night sky. They were bitten somewhere on the body by the wolf servant. After 10 minutes some of the cries died away. Someone died. Jennifer's place is not going well. Rudolph frowned until he heard someone calling for help. Help! Help! Rudolph stepped forward, ready to intervene, but not sure how. However, Henry stood in front of Rudolph. Don't meddle in other people's business, patrol officer. The cavalry must be made to truly feel despair and death in front of them, in order to stimulate their maximum physical potential. Only in this way can we provide Jennifer with the purest ultimate power and help Jennifer. Rudolph's frown deepened, and the teeth of the zombie told him that there were more and more corpses. 1, 2, 4. If the cavalry is reduced too quickly, won't it still affect Jennifer's promotion? No, no, no. Henry shook his head. The minimum record is that only 3 cavalry are needed to help the knight's escort be promoted. The promotion of knights is very cruel, and there is a screening mechanism. It is inevitable to screen out those weak cavalry and screen out those cavalry who can provide ultimate power. Seeing Rudolph's face getting uglier and uglier, Henry said indifferently, "Do you think that the knights keep so many cavalry out of kindness? Cavalry armor is free, or war horses are free. When they become knights' cavalry, those people should be aware of it. If they survive, they will be the knights' loyal cavalry, and they can provide the knights with ultimate power at any time. If they can't make it, they will just have to pay for the horses and equipment that the knights paid for. Isn't this unfair?" The cavalry died too quickly, and Rudolph couldn't help but pull out his gun. Seeing this, Yvonne also picked up her gun. Henry sneered. "You see, your mentality is so ridiculous. The nobles will not keep waste for no reason, and these slaves must have some value. The living and the dead must provide value." Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 82. Jennifer was in a bitter battle. Every time she swallowed her saliva, she could feel the bitter taste. More than a dozen translucent chains with halos flew out from her back. These chains were connected to the abdomen of the cavalry. Waves of energy came from the chains, but these energies were very weak and not enough for Jennifer to break through quickly. The most important thing for a knight to fight is momentum. Once the momentum is broken, once the momentum cannot be maintained, as the cavalry dies one by one, the entire cavalry will quickly weaken. As Rudolph said, these cavalry have been trained for less than half a year. For the cavalry, their physical fitness cannot reach the best state, let alone how to fully exert the strength of their muscles. Their combat capabilities are even more worrying. Facing the wolf servants, the cavalry can only passively defend. As cavalry, they quickly lost their mobility advantage and stood in place swinging their swords left and right. The level 1 werewolves waiting for an opportunity to attack would take the life of a cavalryman every time they attacked. The number of cavalrymen was decreasing rapidly, and soon there were less than 10. Rudolph felt that the quality of those cavalrymen would never play a key role. Jennifer was still too anxious. She should have trained the cavalrymen for at least a full year. If you go any further, you will destroy Jennifer's promotion. Jennifer will be angry, stupid patrolman. Ignoring Henry's words, Rudolph continued to move forward. Rudolph remembered that a few days ago, Bella stood in front of her brother, turning around to admire her brother's knight costume. The knight's heroic style and the tall horse made Bella's face full of pride and praise. For the knights, these cavalrymen are consumables that provide extreme power. Even if they are consumables, they should die more valuable. This is a farce forced by Henry and Baron Hockham, a farce that cannot succeed. Rudolph and Ivan began to speed up the horses and prepared to help. If this continues, those cavalrymen will die. At this moment, Rudolph heard that something was wrong with Ivan on the side. Ivan's throat suddenly made a low roar similar to that of a beast. What happened? Ivan's humanity was very good, how could she suddenly lose control here? Rudolph jumped off the horse, rushed to Ivan in a few steps, hugged Ivan off the horse, and hugged her tightly. Henry was taking out bats from a cloth bag. About 5 bats, each only half the size of a fist, flew out of the cloth bag. 3 of them flew towards Jennifer, and 2 flew high into the sky, circling over Rudolph and Ivan's heads. Those bats flew silently, and Rudolph didn't hear anything. "See you later, stupid patrolman." Henry turned his horse's head and rode away quickly. "Stop! What kind of bats are these?" Rudolph shouted to Henry, but Henry had no intention of answering at all. If it was an ordinary bat, Ivan would never be at risk of losing control. Gunshots rang out, and Rudolph hit Henry's horse directly. The horse fell, and Henry rolled forward, but he continued to flee into the distance without looking back. Rudolph looked down at Ivan, who was staring at the 2 bats in the sky with the most hateful eyes. "What's wrong, Ivan?" "I can't control myself, I want to bite those 2 bats to death." Ivan waved her hands unconsciously towards the sky, trying to pull the bats down. This was already a subconscious action, proving that she was on the verge of losing control. Ivan raised her shotgun and began to shoot wildly into the sky. However, after more than a dozen shotgun shots, 1 was killed, and the other flew higher into the sky. After killing a bat, Ivan finally felt better and was no longer so impatient. "Ivan, slow down, breathe slowly, and try to control yourself." Ivan's expression gradually calmed down, no longer as anxious as before. "Okay, Captain, I'm almost fine." Rudolph grabbed the fallen bat and asked curiously. "Ivan, we have encountered bats before, and you were fine at that time. Is there anything special about this bat?" "I don't know. I have a very strong urge now. I want to crush this bat. This behavior makes me feel sick, but it is difficult to suppress this urge." Rudolph tried to study the bat. After trying several methods, the scorpion toxin transformed by his star power was resisted a little. He was surprised to find that there was the power of the apostle in this bat. Bat? The power of the apostle? Could it be the Blood Clan? Rudolph threw the bat far away, to a place where Ivan could not see. He remembered a saying that werewolves and blood clans were enemies. The Blood Clan built castles in the wilderness, and the areas around those Blood Clan castles were restricted areas for werewolves. For thousands of years, werewolves and vampires have regarded each other as their greatest enemy. Rudolph opened his pet pocket watch and saw a scene that made him ache. "Oh no, there are a lot of werewolves rushing here. About 7 or 8 werewolf teams are rushing here." Ivan looked up at the bats in the sky. Those bats are emitting ultrasonic waves that only werewolves and vampires can hear. All nearby werewolves will be attracted. But why did Henry do this? Rudolph put away his pocket watch. He doesn't want Jennifer to become a knight. The best way is to let Jennifer be bitten to death by werewolves when she is promoted. Let's go and rescue the people in the knight's castle first. Rudolph and the others rushed to the position of the cavalry. There are still a few hundred meters on the road, which will take some time. Rudolph watched the cavalry fall one by one. Since the appearance of the bats, the werewolves have become more irritable, just like the full moon night of the werewolves, much more excited and manic than usual. Soon, 15 cavalrymen died and only 5 cavalrymen were left. Jennifer actually killed a cavalryman who was so scared that his legs were weak and he sat on the ground. She roared and asked the other cavalrymen to follow her. There were only 4 cavalrymen left behind her, retreating to the distance. Rudolph thought that Jennifer also found something wrong and was ready to escape. But what puzzled Rudolph was that Jennifer stopped in the distance, then turned around again and faced the werewolves who were biting the cavalrymen and war horses to death on the ground. She wasn't going to run away. Then, behind Jennifer, the light of the chain connected to the 4 cavalrymen again. Jennifer began her last charge. Sir Jennifer of Leemantown promises here. I will give your family a lifetime of wealth. Dying in bed is a knight's shame. Dying on horseback is a knight's honor. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 83. Jennifer and the cavalry moved. Their target was the level 1 werewolf. The level 1 werewolf was not panicked, he just wanted to bite the neck of the knight's squire in front of him. Being provoked by a low-level knight is a shame for all apostles, no one wants to be the target of a knight's challenge. When the knights still ruled the earth, few people provoked the knights. If you are only one level higher than the knights, it is easy to become a stepping stone for the knight's promotion. Jennifer has taken off her helmet, and her face is now bloody, unwilling, and fanatical. If all her cavalry died, she would have only one way left, marrying Henry, and then handing over her title and castle to her cousin. Rudolph loudly reminded Jennifer to run. But his shouting was useless after all. Jennifer led her cavalry and rushed towards the werewolf. One of the cavalry, like Jennifer, also lost his helmet. As the distance got closer and the warhorse rose and fell, the cavalryman's face was a picture that made people's teeth ache. His cheeks slowly sunken, and the flesh and blood seemed to be sucked away by something. Only halfway through the charge, he was like a layer of burnt yellow casings on a skeleton. The absorption of the guardian chain was too domineering and too fast. Jennifer's momentum became stronger and stronger. The 4 cavalrymen behind her fell one after another. At the moment of collision with the level 1 werewolf, Jennifer finally found the only opportunity. Knights are nobles. Even in peacetime, knights are apostles with a high mortality rate. When they want glory and status, they always die from challenges beyond their ability. At the moment of collision, Jennifer instinctively dodged to the right. The werewolf bit her left arm and she heard the sound of fracture. Her left arm was bitten off, but she ignored the pain and swung her right arm to chop off the head of the level 1 werewolf. Joy floated on Jennifer's face, but when facing the wolf servant who pounced on her, she was already powerless. The wolf servant bit Jennifer's face directly. This wolf servant has been capturing cattle and sheep recently. Among the many hunting methods, he likes to bite the mouth of cattle and sheep and suffocate them. Jennifer saw that the upper and lower rows of teeth were about to close, and saw the wolf servant's throat. This bite would definitely bite through her cheek. However, she could no longer muster any strength. The power provided by the cavalry was just enough for her to break through. Killing the level 1 werewolf was the last thing she could do. What's more, she still had the wolf poison left by the level 1 werewolf on her body, which made her unable to move for a short time. At this time, Jennifer heard gunshots. A bullet pierced the wolf servant's head, and the wolf servant was knocked down and fell to one side. Jennifer turned her head and saw the people coming. It was Rudolph and Yvonne, which made her feel relieved. It was good that it was not Henry. Yvonne rushed to the wolf servant, and Jennifer saw Rudolph saving a cavalryman. Rudolph stood in front of a cavalryman. This cavalryman was not Bella's brother who had met Rudolph once. Bella's brother had been bitten to death by a werewolf long ago. This was a strange cavalryman. A dry breathing sound came from the helmet. When he took off his helmet, he saw a shriveled head. Just like what he saw before, it was like a layer of casing attached to the skeleton, which was the result of excessive absorption by the guardian chain. This cavalryman was still alive. He opened his mouth wide, with 2 rows of teeth and shriveled gums. And the tongue in his mouth was atrophied like the dead skin on the soles of the feet, a thin layer attached to the bottom of the mouth. He opened his mouth wide to breathe, because there was not much meat on his throat, which made his throat look particularly thick. The inner wall of the throat was like cracked bark. The dry breathing sound came from such a throat. Rudolph, the evil wizard, had no means to make such a cruel mummy for the time being. Rudolph, Jennifer warned, the wolf servant over there is gnawing at the throat of the level 1 werewolf. Jennifer also knew how the werewolves were promoted. She saw a wolf servant pounced on the head of the level 1 werewolf and bit the werewolf's neck. The flesh and blood entered the wolf servant's throat, and the wolf servant was quickly becoming a level 1 werewolf. Rudolph. Jennifer felt that the level 1 werewolf that was about to appear was the real business at this time. However, Rudolph went to see Bella's brother again, and he was indeed no longer breathing. In fact, he could use the teeth of the zombie to confirm this, but he still came over, looked at him, and then put on a helmet for him. The happiest moment of this young man's short life should be the moment when he passed by his sister on horseback. Jennifer saw in despair that the wolf servant had completely become a level 1 werewolf. Rudolph. Level 1 werewolf. Level 1 werewolf is coming. She had lost her fighting power. She originally thought that Rudolph's most valuable quality was his ability to grasp the timing on the battlefield, but now it seems that Rudolph's last few attempts were just luck. Rudolph had missed the best time to kill the level 1 werewolf. The new level 1 werewolf slowly stood up and looked at Jennifer on the ground. It was this woman who had been shouting and screaming before, almost attracting the 2 patrolmen. The level 1 werewolf was ready to bite the woman on the ground to death first. Before taking action, he looked up at the sky. Several bats were circling in the sky, flying around. He could feel the disgust from his instinct, and really wanted to kill those bats. The newly born level 1 werewolf pounced on Jennifer. Jennifer forced herself to stand up and prepared to deal with this terrible werewolf. However, Jennifer saw Ivan coming first. Ivan started to shoot at the werewolf non-stop. This was the first time Jennifer saw a shotgun firing like this. The bullets in the shotgun seemed endless. After several consecutive shots, the level 1 werewolf was hit by dozens of lead bullets and fell down. Walking closer, Ivan shot the werewolf's head 3 times and killed the werewolf. Jennifer was very surprised. Is it that simple? What Jennifer didn't know was that Ivan was a level 2 werewolf. Ivan's reaction speed was much faster than that of ordinary people. Ordinary people holding this endless shotgun could not achieve the same effect as Ivan. In addition, Rudolph's level 2 poisoned shotgun was destined to lose resistance when the werewolf was shot for the first time. The reason why Ivan fired so many shots was more because of her irritability. The bats above her head were still flying around. Although it didn't make Ivan lose her mind, it made her very irritated. Ivan didn't stop and went to clean up the wolf servants who wanted to come up but didn't dare to come up. And Rudolph brought a horse and put Jennifer on the horse's back. They first came to the surviving cavalryman. The cavalryman was still breathing hard. His throat was like dry bark, and there were several cracked vertical seams on his throat, which seemed to be leaking air. Does the knight have any secret recipe to save such a cavalryman? It can't be saved. The cavalryman whose extreme strength has been completely drained will slowly die. No knight would study such useless things. The dead cavalryman was like tea dregs poured into the trash can. Tea dregs are tea dregs. No one would think of brewing it again. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 84. Rudolph and the others left quickly, but Rudolph kept looking up at the bats in the sky. Jennifer lay on the horse. Behind Jennifer, where she could not see, Rudolph took out his spiritual pet pocket watch from time to time and observed the surrounding situation. The werewolf tribes are approaching here one after another. Several bats were hovering directly above them. Ivan looked at the bats with disgust. "Captain, those bats are attracting werewolves." "Yeah. Let's run further away." Rudolph is collecting owls, and he only has one owl now. Ordinary owls are not necessarily the opponents of those bats. Those bats have the power of vampires in their bodies. He was still going to find more owls to see if he could kill those bats. In addition to the approaching werewolf, Rudolph also sees Henry. These bats were released by Henry. He seemed to have some way of tracking the bats. He followed them from a distance. Moreover, something should have been planted on Jennifer, otherwise the bat shouldn't just be chasing Jennifer. In the night, there was the sound of wolves howling one after another. After a while, Jennifer started humming, not knowing what she wanted to say. Rudolph got closer and heard that Jennifer was already in a semi-fainting state. The injury to her arm and the wolfsbane made Jennifer very painful. Even Sheriff Claude would be in a coma due to wolfsbane when he was a level 2 alchemist, and Jennifer would be affected by wolfsbane even if she was a knight. Rudolph also had the wolfsbane potion, but he wasn't going to give it to Jennifer right away. He finally collected enough owls, a total of 8 owls, hovering higher than bats. Animals the size of mice and bats are owls' favorite food. The battlefield in heaven and the battlefield on earth begin at the same time. Several werewolf tribes caught up with Rudolph and others while chasing bats. The werewolves swarmed up, ready to kill these people who were obviously related to bats. After confirming that Jennifer was unconscious, Rudolph and Ivan dared to let go. These wolf servants brought by level 1 werewolves are already very easy for Rudolph and Ivan to deal with. Rudolph has night vision eyes, a physical strength sharing contract, and muscle enhancement. He now relies purely on physical fitness to fight. Even if he is not as good as a level 1 werewolf, it is not much different. What's more, he also has an endless revolver and thousands of bullets in the revolver. Owls were also killing bats one by one in the sky. Fortunately, those bats were not very powerful. When the last bat was bitten to death, Rudolph felt relieved. There are no more werewolves gathering here, and the next step is acting. Rudolph and Ivan, fighting and fleeing, fled further and further away. When Henry caught up with the three of them, he saw the final battlefield. There were more than 20 dead werewolves scattered on the ground. Henry looked not far away. The male patrolman was bitten by a werewolf on his shoulder. He was drooping his arms and fell into a coma due to wolfsbane. The female patrolman also looked miserable. Half of her body fell behind a big rock. There were still blood stains on the big rocks, which were the result of her fight with the werewolf. And Jennifer was sitting next to the horse's body. The horse fell to the ground and Jennifer leaned against it. At this time, the wolfsbane had gradually faded away, and Jennifer could already open her eyes. "Is it you? Henry, did you release the castle bat?" Jennifer knew that kind of bat, the bat from the vampire castle. It was originally used to declare the territory of the castle and drive away the werewolves around the castle. Werewolves have a deep hatred for this kind of bat, so they pursue Jennifer. Fortunately, all the bats were bitten to death by owls, otherwise these bats would continue to attract werewolves. Henry just smiled and walked towards Jennifer. He drew out his broadsword, and there was a glimmer of light on the broadsword. Jennifer was in a daze, level 2 knight's sword. "Before I die, let me tell you something out of mercy." Henry walked up to Jennifer and blocked the moonlight. "This level 2 knight's sword is the ancestral witchcraft of your family. This level 2 knight's sword is also the level 2 knight's sword that your grandfather snatched after killing your grandfather. Your grandfather said, 'Let me marry you and completely annex your family.' You didn't have to die originally, but who told you to be promoted now? Who told you to become a level 1 knight? Henry raised the level 2 knight's sword with both hands high, and was about to kill Jennifer with one strike. White light fell from the knight's sword and enveloped Henry. Gunshots rang out in the night sky. A bullet hit the light shield created by the knight's sword. Rudolph stood up as if nothing had happened, and Ivan also walked out from behind the big rock. You! Henry stared at the two people dumbfounded, and he held the knight's sword in front of him. Rudolph and Ivan were equally surprised. The light shield formed by the knight's sword could actually provide very strong protective capabilities. Are level 2 knights no longer afraid of ordinary bullets? The bullet hit the mask but failed to pierce it. Rudolph frowned. Bullets were not omnipotent in this world. Perhaps ordinary firearms and gunpowder were no longer effective against the senior apostles. At least a level 2 knight known for his physical fitness and all-around ability can withstand bullet damage. The kinetic energy of the bullets had little effect. On the contrary, the poison of the level 2 poisoning technique, although evaporated into lavender smoke by the light shield, could disturb the light shield. Rudolph had no new means for the time being, and could only suppress Henry's level 2 knight sword with numbers. Bullets were fired out of the gun barrels one after another. Rudolph and Ivan fired countless bullets at Henry in a short period of time. Henry was only a level 1 knight after all. Even if he held the level 2 knight sword, he could not hold on for long, and his knight power would be exhausted first. The knight sword was not a knight breastplate, and the defense it provided was not stable. Until Rudolph's fingers were cramped, the light shield created by the level 2 knight sword finally disappeared. As the light shield disappeared, Henry died, with bullet holes all over his body. Rudolph came to Jennifer, who was still very weak and struggling with the wolf poison in her body. Jennifer raised her heavy eyelids and looked at Rudolph's expression in front of her. Rudolph's face was not very good. Rudolph, are you still angry? You can see it. Because of those cavalrymen. I was a little angry at first. You could have been promoted half a year later, which would have been better for you and the cavalrymen. But now, because of Henry, even if you were promoted a year later, those cavalrymen would still die, and you would still die. Rudolph wanted to say something, but Jennifer had already fainted. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 85. This night, Rudolph harvested more than a dozen pieces of wolf saliva. He also found 3 pack horses that had been released before the war began, and could help them return to town. After placing the unconscious Jennifer on the horse, Ivan touched Jennifer's forehead. Captain, she has a fever. After so much effort, the strength is still so weak, even wolfsbane can't resist it. Rudolph sighed and had to feed Jennifer the next wolfsbane potion. Although Jennifer was still unconscious, her face was no longer so painful. Ivan's horse was hung with their trophies, an aluminum can of wolf saliva, and a level 2 knight's sword. After walking for an hour or two, Jennifer finally woke up. She looked around first and found that it was safe now. Ivan rode in front, herself in the middle, and Rudolph behind. Jennifer sat up on the horse and slowly recovered. Her first reaction was that her physique had improved after becoming a level 1 knight, so she was in good condition now. But when she saw her restored arm, she knew that she had been saved by the wolfsbane potion. Jennifer took control of the horse and slowed it down, walking side by side with Rudolph. Jennifer said softly, "Thank you, Rudolph. It should be, it's just a task assigned by the chief." Jennifer thought of Rudolph and Ivan's exaggerated fighting prowess. "Your gun is very special. Is it the gun of the police station? Which weapons that flowed from the treasure house of the Salem wizard? Ivan and I both have legal witch weapon possession certificates. Why emphasize legality?" Rudolph didn't know why, maybe because it wasn't so legal. "You too can hold a magic weapon, and it is such a special magic weapon that ordinary people can use. Sheriff Claude really values you very much. The sheriff also has a gun like this, and he takes it very seriously. Jennifer didn't dwell too much on the two guns. Henry, he deserves to die. Yes, he deserves to die. Rudolph remembered something. You know the castle bat, what is it? The castle bat is a bat that lives in the vampire castle and is kept as a pet by the vampires. They will have certain vampire power and patrol the castle for the vampires. According to legend, the ancestors of Eris, the vampires, and the werewolves were three brothers. Later, I don't know what happened, the evil gods shared the food of Eris, and the ancestor of the blood race and the ancestor of the werewolf turned against each other. They are feuding, so when a werewolf sees a bat in the castle, he will want to kill the nearby vampires. This is an instinct engraved in his blood. I didn't expect that Henry would get such a thing and use the hands of a werewolf to kill me. Rudolph said, if you don't come for promotion and can be Sir Henry's wife with peace of mind, even if you have many lovers outside, I don't think Henry will kill you. I would still rather be Sir Jennifer than Sir Henry's wife. Wouldn't it be better for me to have a lover myself? Why do I have to ask for someone else's permission to have a lover? That's right, congratulations, Dame Jennifer. Thank you, Patrolman Rudolph. If you really want to thank me, why don't you reimburse me for the wolfsbane potion I just used on you? I don't mind if you reimburse me more. Wolfsbane potion is very expensive. 2 gold shields, okay. Very well. A tube of wolfsbane potion can sell for more than 10 silver shields, and 2 gold shields is already a huge premium. Jennifer's eyes fell on the side of Yvonne's horse in front, where was the level 2 knight's sword. By the way, Rudolph, I remember your dream was to become an alchemist. I can help you become an alchemist, and I can also help you become the next police chief. Rudolph was stunned. How could he refuse? If you want to become an alchemist, you have to work as an assistant in an alchemist's laboratory. Sheriff Claude does not have a laboratory, so his mind is not on those bottles and jars. What if he was exposed in the High Alchemist's laboratory? Just when Rudolph was struggling, he heard Jennifer's next words. In exchange, how about you give me the level 2 knight's sword? You also heard that it is my ancestral knight's sword. Rudolph turned his head and stared at Jennifer. Sir Jennifer, for just a moment, I thought you were doing this out of gratitude for me, out of gratitude for the differences we have just resolved, for our friendship, and for supporting the dreams I pursue. However, in the end I still thought too much. It turns out that you are asking me to use a level 2 knight's sword in exchange for your funding to become an alchemist. I didn't expect that. How big the surprise was just now, how big the disappointment is now. This. Jennifer kept opening and closing her lips, not knowing what to say. I really didn't mean to hurt your feelings. Funding an alchemist is also a very huge amount of money for Jazz Castle. Rudolph shook his head. Sir Jennifer, I think we should keep our relationship purely financial and free of any emotions. Let's do this. I grant you the right to make the first offer for the level 2 knight's sword. Make a price, and if I'm satisfied, I'll sell you the level 2 knight's sword. After Jennifer thought for a while, she came up with a fairly fair price. The market price of a level 2 knight's sword is about 500 gold shields. How about this price? 500 gold shields, this is a familiar number. Rudolph thought about it and said. Let me think about it. Just now, you wanted to use your support for me to become an alchemist in exchange for a level 2 knight's sword. As far as I know, the cost of becoming an alchemist is also about 500 gold shields. In other words, you use the level 2 knight's sword that belongs to me now to support me to become an alchemist. Your in and out is equivalent to not spending a penny, and you get a level 2 knight's sword for free, and my lifelong gratitude. After I become the sheriff, I will also become your knight's castle thug. Is that how you understand it? Jennifer felt that Rudolph was smarter than he thought. Rudolph said seriously. Level 2 knight's sword, 600 gold shields, not a single bronze shield can be less. but if you hand the knight's sword over to the police station, won't you get nothing except the reward from the police station? Who told you that I have to hand it over? Jennifer couldn't help asking, will Sheriff Claude allow you to hold such an important magic weapon? Won't he take it back? Who told you that Sheriff Claude is so noble? He doesn't care whether this magic weapon will be handed over to the police station. With just a look from him, we can sell the level 2 knight's sword and split the money later. Jennifer couldn't help saying. Look, if I don't buy your level 2 knight's sword, then you can only sell it with the sheriff, and you definitely can't get all the money. Why don't you sell it to me, and I'll keep it a secret for you? Who told you that there is no share for Sheriff Claude in the 600 gold shields? What? You still want to give the sheriff a share? Of course, I am a qualified patrol captain. How can I not think of my leader when I do such a good thing? Why do you think the sheriff is so good to me? Jennifer had nothing to say. That's it, 600 gold shields, I'll give it to you after I go back. One hand pays, the other hand delivers the goods. Just as Rudolph and his men were rushing back to the town, a man in a black robe came to the place where they had just fought. According to the divination results, coming to this place at this time is beneficial to what I want to investigate. Let me see what can help me. Kevin searched for all useful things, until he found an owl, a dead owl. In the owl's mouth, there was still half a castle bat. Castle bat, blood clan power, and star power. I finally caught your tale. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 86. When the three Rudolphs saw the town of Lehman, they also saw the rising sun. Jennifer stood at the crossroads and said, Rudolph, Ivan, the breakfast at Jazz Castle is good. Can I invite you to the castle and have breakfast with me? I won't disturb you, Sir Jennifer, let's go back to the police station. Rudolph was about to leave when he saw Jennifer staring at the level 2 knight's sword. Oh, don't worry about this, Sir Jennifer. As long as you prepare the golden shield, we will send the level 2 knight's sword to Sir's castle at any time. The few people separated, and Rudolph and Ivan went straight to the police station. Rudolph was very hungry and he went directly to the restaurant. However, he waited for half an hour and saw no one in the restaurant. He moved to the back kitchen and found that there was no one in the back kitchen. What's going on? What day is it today? Why is there no breakfast? Ivan was standing at the door of the restaurant, where there was a notice. Captain, due to the shortage of bread, the police station no longer provides breakfast from the day before yesterday. It only provides lunch and dinner every day. What? There's no such thin, translucent bread anymore. Rudolph looked at the notice and had to accept this reality. With the werewolf riot and insect plague, people are starting to starve. Rudolph suddenly remembered something. What did Jennifer say half an hour ago that the breakfast at Jazz Castle was good? We just rejected her, how about we go now? Rudolph glanced at the empty restaurant and said, whether you are good or not is a matter of face, and whether you are hungry or not is a matter of your stomach. Let's go to the Jazz Castle. After leaving the police station, Rudolph deliberately paid attention to the street. Although it was still early, there were too few people on the streets. Is the grain shortage already so serious? To Rudolph's surprise, at the gate of Jazz Castle, they saw Sheriff Claude, who was about to leave the castle. Rudolph, Ivan, hello you guys. Rudolph tried to catch a look of embarrassment on the sheriff's face, but failed. The sheriff was not embarrassed at all. Chief, are you here for breakfast too? Breakfast? Sheriff Claude was stunned, and immediately thought that Rudolph was looking for him under the steps, and he was a little superfluous. Oh, yes, I'm here for breakfast. The breakfast at Jazz Castle is very good. Ivan pointed to the sheriff's neck. Sheriff, you should wash your neck. On the sheriff's neck, where the collar didn't cover it, there was still half a lip print. Skillfully taking out a wet wipe, the sergeant wiped his neck. Goodbye, Rudolph, Ivan the sheriff said as he walked away. By the way, you two did a good job. I just found out this morning that Sir Jennifer has been successfully promoted to level 1 knight. Jazz Castle said that there will be a celebration party on the weekend night to celebrate Jennifer's promotion to a level 1 knight. When the time comes, the three of us, as representatives of the police department, will come together. After saying that, the sheriff mounted his horse. Just as he was about to leave, he saw the knight's sword beside Ivan. This is it. Seeing that there was no one else on the left and right, Rudolph came closer and whispered. The matter is too complex to be written down in a report. For some reason, Henry was holding the level 2 knight's sword lost by Jennifer's family. He was so careless that not only did he lose his life, but he also lost the knight's sword in the woods. The three of us picked it up and planned to sell it, not give it back to Jennifer. Sheriff Claude thought for a few seconds and quickly guessed everything. He remembered Mrs. Lysolle's request last night and sighed. Sure enough, women won't take the initiative easily unless they want more. I knew it wasn't that simple. Henry, Baron Harksum, the level 2 knight's sword that was lost and suddenly appeared. Mrs. Leslie's request was more complicated than she said. The next time they meet, she must give her some more extreme orders. Although the role of Lady Sir's maid is contrasting enough and exciting, it is obviously far from enough to make him show up. Sheriff Claude felt that his participation in this matter was not worth the loss. He looked at Rudolph. Did you three pick up this sword? Who else? Aren't you two people? Sheriff, and you, don't you think there are three of us? Well done, Rudolph, you are indeed the person I like. I am willing to pick up only a small part. You can raise the asking price, and I think Jazz Castle will not refuse. Understood, it's all within the plan. I'll take control. The sheriff left here satisfied, and his kindness to Rudolph and Ivan was not in vain. Jennifer was still surprised when she met Rodolfo so soon. Sir Jennifer, after we think about it over and over again, we still think that it is very unsafe to carry the level 2 knight's sword with you. In order to avoid losing the knight's sword, we should come to the Sir's castle first. Jennifer didn't believe it. She felt that Rudolph was not such a person. Until she heard her stomach growling, Rudolph put his hand on his stomach awkwardly. Butler, let's take inventory of the castle's inventory in the morning. First, take the two patrolmen to have breakfast. When Rudolph and Ivan were sitting in the dining room of the Jazz Castle, they were surprised by the food on the long table. Hot chocolate with milk, apple juice, 2 large glasses per person. A big plate of croissants and cornflakes soaked in milk are the staples. There were also ham and sausages, filling the half-meter diameter plate. There were small breads and desserts that fell into a 4-sided pyramid, and even more frighteningly, there was a whole roast goose, which the people in the Jazz Castle did not feel tired of. Compared with the empty police station restaurant, and compared with other town residents who got up late to save breakfast, the breakfast here was indeed very rich. Rudolph and Ivan had a full meal. Since the police station reduced the breakfast portion, Rudolph has never had such a full breakfast. After the two finished eating, the butler appeared in time and invited them to the Jazz's study. In the study, Rudolph drank hot tea again. The Jazz Castle, which has several large farms, still has sufficient supplies even in a disaster year. Jennifer took out an envelope. Rudolph, this is 600 gold shields to buy your trophy, the level 2 knight sword. Rudolph opened the envelope in front of Jennifer. The housekeeper shook his head secretly. This was too ungraceful. Would the Jazz Castle still lie about this? Rudolph took out the gold shield, counted it carefully, and gave Ivan 200 gold shields. Although Yvonne was not short of money, she was still very happy to see so much money. 100 gold shields will suddenly appear in the sheriff's coat today. The remaining 300 gold shields belong to Rudolph. Patrolman Rudolph, Patrolman Yvonne, I think Sheriff Claude has told you that there will be a celebration party in the castle this Sunday night. You are welcome to come. Thank you for the invitation. We will definitely come when the time comes. Rudolph put down the knight's sword and turned to leave. In the castle, Rudolph also met the jazz lady. The jazz lady was walking down the stairs, revealing a section of her calf, with fair and tight skin. The lady is really well maintained. No wonder the sheriff can take so many nights out of his busy schedule. On the way out of Jazz Castle, Rudolph and Yvonne met many crying people. Jazz Castle had notified the families of the cavalrymen of the tragic news of their deaths. Rudolph saw Bella crying among them. Poor Bella, she had just married Mayo and her life had just gotten better, but now her only brother was dead. This is life. At noon that day, Kevin also returned to the town. He hid on the rooftop of a 3-story house and looked up at the sky. To his surprise, he didn't wait for the owl. It shouldn't be, why doesn't he use the owl, which is such a useful monitoring pet? Kevin's divination could no longer give him a direct answer, and he had to collect evidence and guess at the same time. No, owls are more active at night, and owls are more suitable as witchcraft weapons at night. What was it during the day? Could it be those sparrows? Kevin stared at the circling sparrows, whose flight paths were obviously different from those of ordinary sparrows. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 87. The sheriff has been writing letters to someone these days, and he was still communicating with others until late on Sunday afternoon. Therefore, the three of them set out from the police station very late and went to the Jazz Castle. The sheriff took the lead in wearing police uniforms to attend the banquet. Rudolph and Yvonne didn't say much, but Rudolph still asked, "Are we wearing police uniforms? Shouldn't we change into a dress, or at least a suit?" The sheriff said, "We are not attending the banquet as individuals, but we also have to represent the police station. We also represent the attitude of the police station towards Sir Jennifer." Attitude towards Sir Jennifer? What is the attitude? You will know when you get there. When the three of them entered the banquet hall of the Jazz Castle, there were already quite a few people in the banquet hall. Oh! Sheriff Claude. Level 3 Alchemist, a strong contender for the position of Inspector of the City Police Department. I'm glad that you can come to my granddaughter's night dinner. An old man in a gorgeous dress came towards them. The old man was in good health, his steps were steady, and he was full of strength. The corners of his eyes and mouth were down, and with the deep wrinkles on his face, it was still obvious that he was not young. Looking at the noble emblem on his chest, this was Baron Harcombe. I didn't expect the Baron to be so well informed that he even knew about a little sheriff like me. Sheriff Claude stepped forward and saluted Baron Harcombe. Level 3 Alchemist, this is not something that ordinary people can do. My granddaughter is the Lord of Lehman Town, and I need you to take care of her. Jennifer stepped forward and saluted Sheriff Claude. The sheriff also saluted Jennifer in return. Every time Sheriff Claude saluted, Rudolph and Yvonne behind him had to follow suit. Rudolph admired this point very much. Even if there was only deep hatred between Baron Harcombe and Lord Jennifer, they could still smile and raise their glasses together and talk about the glory of their ancestors. This is the cultivation of the nobility. Sheriff Claude smiled at Jennifer. I watched Sir Jennifer grow up. When Sir was still in the crib, I held her in my arms. Rudolph complained in his heart that the young lady of the lady was very anxious at that time. The child was not grown up yet, but they continued to have a tryst. As the sheriff of Lehman Town and a friend of the lady, I am very much looking forward to Jennifer's growth. She is only 19 years old now. Maybe in the near future, she will become a level 2 or even level 3 knight. That would be great. After saying that, Sheriff Claude glanced at a middle-aged man next to Baron Hockham. Jennifer's uncle, the father of the deceased Henry, Sir Harley. Sir Harley's face was very pale, and he was somewhat similar to Lady Lysaly. I'm very sorry about Henry's death. Who would have thought that an action against a level 1 werewolf would attract so many werewolves? Sir Harley had no expression on his face, and just said, Sheriff Claude, as a knight, Henry died in battle, which is his honor. Sheriff Claude spoke again. Sir Jennifer, there is something I need your help with. Sheriff, please go ahead. Your father, Sir Jacques, once went to the police station to report a case. His level 2 knight sword was lost, and the sheriff at the time was not capable of handling such a major case. I didn't expect that you would find the lost level 2 knight sword in the wilderness, which is really a surprise. I hope you can sign the police station documents and let this case end here. Yvonne took out the folder and pen and handed them to Jennifer. Rudolph looked at the faces of Baron Hockham and Sir Harley, and understood why they wore police uniforms to attend the banquet. This is also the attitude of Sheriff Claude. As a level 3 alchemist, he decided to stand behind Jennifer and support her. From the look on the face of the Lady of the Jazz watching from a distance, she felt that her efforts last night had paid off, and her thighs were a little sore now. After exchanging pleasantries for a while, Sheriff Claude and his friends entered the banquet hall. Sheriff Claude went to socialize, and Rudolph and Yvonne ate the food of the Jazz Castle on their own. Roast geese, steaks, and lamb legs. Rudolph ate very little at noon, just for this big meal in the evening. Those prominent figures were toasting, talking, and laughing, only Rudolph and Yvonne were seriously devouring the meat. Yvonne was a wolf girl, born with a big stomach, and she also preferred to eat meat. The banquet entered the dance session, and Sheriff Claude and Lady Leslie finally turned back after dancing the first dance. Rudolph, you should get to know those Jazz, not only the Hockham family, but also the barons of other towns. Sheriff Claude was like an elder who hoped that the younger generation could see the world. No. Why? Sheriff, do you think Sir Jennifer is a good person? Of course, she is gentle and strong, beautiful and generous, and is a rare noble. I think so too. Sir Jennifer is an elegant and beautiful knight in every way. But I have seen how she was promoted to knight. Sheriff, does knight promotion require beating others into a mummy every time? Sheriff Claude shook his head. Rudolph, I understand your idea. When I was young, I was like you, obsessed with the virtues described in the book. But after growing up, I slowly discovered that life is not what the book advertises. Knights are strong in their steel-like physical energy. This energy does not appear out of thin air, and needs to establish a connection with his cavalry. The usual training is to run in this connection, the cooperation in battle is to use this connection, and the protective chain during the breakthrough is the peak of their power. I have also seen that kind of mummies, which is indeed physically uncomfortable. However, knights are responsible for their own territories after all. Except for promotion, most of them are the makers and maintainers of order in the territory. Nothing is clean, and gray is the main color. I think that for the chosen apostles, as long as they are willing to maintain a stable order, they are good apostles. You hate knights, I hate knights, and many people hate knights, but knights are still trustworthy, reasonable, and abide by contracts after all. This is enough for the farmers on the farm to have a life to live. Compared with other farms, the farmers on Sir Jennifer's farm live better. To be honest, I also hate alchemists, who control every corner of the city with golden shields. However, they have been creating some inventions that can improve life, like the chandeliers above our heads, like agricultural machinery. There is no such thing as a chosen apostle. The so-called chosen apostle is just a relatively less bad apostle among many apostles. The only thing in common between knights, alchemists, and druids is that they all need ordinary people. Ordinary people have a certain value to the three chosen apostles. This makes the three chosen apostles willing to maintain a basic order, in which ordinary people can at least survive. Rudolph, the world is gray. Enjoy, indulge, and try and make mistakes. Young people should not live too constrained, care less about other people's opinions, and care less about moral judgments. Otherwise, when you are old, you will regret it very much. I loved many people when I was young, and I watched them get married one by one. I never thought that I would be single until now. It is really cool, but there are still regrets. At this time, Lady Jazz came over and invited the sheriff to dance again. The disappointment and memories on the sheriff's face disappeared instantly, replaced by intoxication. My beautiful Lady Jazz, I wanted to hide my obsession with you, but it's too difficult. Sheriff Claude hugged Lady Jazz's fat-free waist and kissed her smooth forehead. The two of them looked at each other with spring in their eyes and walked to the dance floor. It may be available on Friday. I hope everyone will support it with the first order. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 88. The sheriff and the lady went to dance, but Rudolph saw a man walking towards him. It was Sir Harley. Sir Harley looked gloomy, or sad. Patrolman Rudolph. It's me. I heard that you, Jennifer and Henry went to complete Jennifer's promotion ceremony. Yes, this is the order of the sheriff. As a father who just lost his son, I want to know how my son died. I don't think you need to know these details, please accept my condolences. Sir Harley was very determined. No, I want to know if my son looked like a brave knight when he died. Rudolph glanced at Jennifer not far away. In fact, you should ask Sir Jennifer about this matter. At the beginning of the battle, Knight Henry emphasized that the promotion of knights cannot be interfered with, and Sir Jennifer's full potential must be stimulated in danger. He drove me and Yvonne away first, so I don't know the specific situation. Whatever Jennifer said, Rudolph didn't care. Anyway, now that the sheriff is here, Jennifer will not sell Rudolph. Sir Harley couldn't get anything out of Rudolph, so he left. After a while, someone came to disturb Rudolph from dealing with the roast goose. It was Jennifer's maid. Patrolman Rudolph, the Lord hopes you can invite her to dance. Dance. Rudolph had no choice but to walk towards Jennifer and extend his hand to her. Beautiful lady, can I ask you to massage your feet for a while and move your toes? 5 seconds later, Jennifer knew what a foot massage was. If you can't dance, you can walk slowly beside me. Your massage is a bit heavy. Rudolph awkwardly lifted his foot from Jennifer's foot again, then stood beside Jennifer, watching Jennifer constantly changing her dance steps. What did Sir Harley say just now? Ask his son, your second cousin, how Henry died. What did you say? I said Henry drove Yvonne and me away at the beginning, and I don't know what happened. Okay, I will explain the whole story to Uncle Harley tonight. It's hard to make up, right? Jennifer smiled. It's easy to make up. The wilderness is a good place, nothing will leave a trace. The wilderness is a good place, this sentence really makes sense. Jennifer turned her head and looked at Sheriff Claude and Lady Sir in the middle of the dance floor. My stupid mother finally did the right thing. As long as she is in Lehman Town, Sheriff Claude can handle most things. Rudolph thought Jennifer was pretty good, and she actually supported her mother so much in this matter. After a dance, Rudolph didn't want to stay in the banquet hall anymore. He went out and came to a terrace of the castle. Twirling a glass of wine in his hand, Rudolph looked at the castle and the farm outside the castle boredly. The farm, which was supposed to be harvested, was now empty. Although there were no aphids, there were no crops. Rudolph didn't even know whether it was because they had eliminated the aphids or the aphids had eliminated the crops and then disappeared. Just when Rudolph was bored, a bald head appeared in the distance and flashed away. There was a street lamp there, and the bald head just appeared under the street lamp. The bright bald head suddenly became much brighter. Rudolph was a little confused. Ordinary people would not leave a bald head. In addition to the natural loss of hair, it is very troublesome to leave a bald head. Hair can be cut once a month, but a bald head needs to be shaved every few days. An owl flew over and chased the bald head. The bald head walked farther and farther and entered a warehouse on the farm. The owl landed on a tree outside the warehouse and stared at the window of the warehouse. At this time, a figure flashed in the window. A mouse got out from under the tree and quickly crawled to the warehouse. In the warehouse, the mouse saw 3 people. 2 women and a bald man. They had their backs to the door. The mouse crawled very slowly. Rudolph stared at the pet pocket watch, and suddenly, the 3 people seemed to have discovered something, and quickly dispersed, with a fast pace. However, it didn't look like they had discovered the mouse, and no one looked in the direction of the mouse. Is someone coming? Someone approached the warehouse. The bald and short women in the warehouse disappeared, leaving only the tall woman. Only the tall woman was left with her back to the door, tidying up her clothes. Rudolph hurriedly switched to the owl's vision. The owl lowered its head and suddenly looked at a masked man. Oops! Who is this? Why can he see the means by which Rudolph manipulates the pet? At this moment, Rudolph thought a lot. Could it be a level 4 wizard, or a level 4 druid? Impossible. How could there be such a high-level apostle in Lehman Town? The owl looked down at the person on the ground, motionless, and the person on the ground also looked up at the owl. Rudolph could only see the color of his pupils, which was dark blue. Soon, the man on the ground raised his hand, made a pistol gesture, and shook his finger at the owl. I found you. Rudolph closed the pet crystal and stared into the distance. It was too far away, so he couldn't see the warehouse, but he knew that there was a dangerous person there, and he had identified Rudolph's owl through some means. Rudolph narrowed his eyes. He felt threatened. This feeling was very bad. So, he was going to take a look. Anyway, he had the sheriff behind him, so he was not afraid of anything. A few minutes later, Rudolph came to the warehouse. He found that there was no one here. It was just an ordinary warehouse. Walking inside, there was only an empty echo. The cold moonlight shone through the window, shining on the farm machinery, illuminating the dust on it. Because the autumn harvest was very bad, these machines were not used much. He activated the owl again and looked for traces of those people around the farm. Both the 3 people in the warehouse and the person standing under the tree disappeared. Rudolph was in a bad mood. He returned to the banquet hall and came to the butler standing at the door of the banquet hall. The butler was very busy and needed to take care of all aspects of the banquet. Butler, has there been a bald man in the castle recently? Bald man, the butler said very confidently. No, I haven't seen a bald man. The only outsiders who came to the castle recently were some pest control workers hired to ensure winter plowing. There were no other people. But there were no bald men there. Rudolph said. Butler, if you see any bald people, you must notify the police station as soon as possible. I know, Captain Rudolph. Just when Rudolph was worried, a maid walked quickly towards Rudolph and handed him a note. The butler saw the maid and the note and quickly walked to other places, deliberately avoiding Rudolph, or rather, avoiding the note. Rudolph opened the note and saw a line of words on it, 12 o'clock, number 1 Paget Street, Jennifer. He looked up and looked at Jennifer, and found that Jennifer was also looking at him. Jennifer raised her glass and smiled at Rudolph. 1 Pudge Street, isn't that the Sir's property in the town? Rudolph was very melancholy. Should he bow to the unrestrained customs of the other world? But Rudolph's body was very honest, and he immediately smiled at Jennifer. After the banquet, Rudolph came to 1 Pudge Street, a very luxurious 4-story mansion. Jennifer's maid welcomed Rudolph into the house and sent him to the bathroom. Rudolph looked at his handsome face in the mirror and knew that this day would come sooner or later. This extraordinary charm, after all, still bowed to the beautiful and powerful. There was red wine next to the bathtub. It seemed that Jennifer knew his preferences. Not long after, Jennifer came in wearing a red silk pajamas. The belt of the pajamas was tied perfunctorily and was about to fall off at any time. Jennifer's thighs were long and strong. After a few steps, the loose knot could not bear it. The pajamas were completely open, revealing a white neck, deep ravines, and clear abdominal muscles. The silk pajamas were very slippery, and the powerful thighs swung, making the pajamas open further. When Jennifer walked in front of Rudolph, the pajamas were only hanging on the edge of her shoulders. This pajamas was very sensible, only covering Jennifer's 2 arms. Generous and unrestrained, Jennifer also lay in the bathtub, and Rudolph handed her a glass of wine. "I won't ask anything else, but why do you come here? Isn't it more convenient in the Jazz Castle?" Jennifer's face was no longer serious, and the sound of water was splashing. She raised her arms and hugged Rudolph's neck, her cheeks flushed. "Why, Sheriff Claude is upstairs, and you are downstairs. Are you two, master and apprentice, going to occupy my castle?" "Hiss, is that the case? Then there is no need to be so close. It's better to be far away." "I didn't think about it. It's really not suitable to be in the castle." You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 89. Grab it. It's them who are driving up the price of bread. In the town of Lehman, there were robberies and vandalism all over the place. People picked up stones and sticks and smashed the glass of the bakery piece by piece. The smell of freedom was in the air. Yesterday he was eating and drinking in the Jazz Castle, and now seeing hungry and angry people filling the streets, Rudolph felt full of illusions. It was also the first time for Rudolph to see the panicked Sheriff Claude. Everyone in the police station was mobilized and rushed to the street to maintain order on the street. People who are hungry are really crazy. Many people in Lehman town rushed to the bakery. They smashed the door and windows of the bakery, rushed into the bakery, dragged the bakery owner to the street, and beat him severely. After beating the bakery owner, the hungry people were surprised to find that there was not much bread in the bakery. There was no bread in the bakery, no bread in the kitchen, and no bread in the pantry. Tell me, where has all the bread gone? Did you hide it and sell it to us at a high price on purpose? The bakery owner cried while picking up his knocked-out tooth. I also have to buy wheat flour to make bread. Without wheat flour, how can I get bread? A bald man kicked the bakery owner hard, knocking out 2 teeth and making the bakery owner's mouth bleed. Rudolph has been looking for a bald person these days, and now he suddenly sees a bald person, but he doesn't know how to start. Because, there are suddenly a lot of bald people. At this time, many of the people participating in the riot had shiny bald heads. This isn't a trendy hairstyle, it's the emergence of a group that uses a unified image to differentiate themselves from each other. Rudolph rushed into the crowd to pull the poor baker out. His arm secretly exerted force, and he pushed 3 or 5 people away in an instant, and saw the bakery owner lying on the ground. If you don't save the boss, he may really be beaten to death. Rudolph straddled the bakery owner in one step, blocking the angry people around him and trying to drag the bakery owner up. The fists and kicks hit Rudolph one after another, but Rudolph could not avoid it. The people around him were trying to kill him, and the bakery owner now had broken ribs. Rudolph couldn't fight back, because many of the people he beat up were really hungry people. Let alone them, The police station doesn't have much food now. Not only was there no breakfast, but there was also insufficient supply for lunch and dinner. The bakery owner turned his head and saw with his cracked eyes that someone was falling on his head. This prevents him from being beaten further. Patrol, is this patrolman Rudolph? The bakery owner could hear Rudolph being kicked on the back. If it weren't for Rudolph's physical strength sharing contract and muscle enhancement, he wouldn't be able to withstand these attacks. Other people in the police station wanted to step forward, but they were unable to push through. Among those who beat people, the bald ones were extremely excited. Just when Rudolph didn't know what to do, gunfire suddenly came from the street. This shot was definitely not fired by someone from the police station. Before setting off, the police chief said that you should not shoot unless it is absolutely necessary. The Alchemy Council encourages people to hold guns and use them to resist the rule of the nobility. Therefore, everyone can buy gun ammunition. Gunshots were fired and screams of fear were heard in the streets. Hitting with fists and using guns are two completely different concepts. The crowd panicked and ran in all directions, away from the gunfire. The rioting bald heads also fled with the crowd. Rudolph grabbed the bakery owner by the shoulders and dragged him into the bakery. Ivan finally pushed through the crowd and entered the bakery. You rest here for now, I'll come back to see you later. The bakery owner's mouth was full of blood, and he was still in pain. He couldn't speak. He saw two patrol officers leaving the bakery after being robbed. Crying alone. Where's the sheriff? The sheriff is off to deal with the riots on other streets. Rudolph took out his pocket watch and wanted to know who had shot him, but the streets were so busy that it was impossible to tell who had the gun. Don't worry about the shooter for now, let's go find the bald heads first. Bald guys. There was no tradition of bald heads in Lehmantown before. Rudolph found the three bald heads walking together and immediately followed them. After someone opened fire, the nature changed. What was a terrible situation before was now much simpler because people dispersed. The result of encouraging gun ownership is that once someone goes crazy and shoots on the street, most people will have no choice but to run for their lives and no longer care about smashing up bakeries. The three bald heads rushed all the way out of the town. While chasing, Rudolph asked doubtfully, Ivan, is the police department's control of the town so weak? When did so many bald heads appear? Those bald heads look unfamiliar, they don't look like people from the town. From their hands and skin color, they look more like farmers. Hearing something like a farmer made Rudolph feel a little surprised. The farm will employ many farmers, and they are far away from the town. If the farmers make any noise, the police station in the town will not be able to know it immediately. Following the three bald heads, Rudolph came to a small river. At this time, three bald heads were standing behind a woman by the river. Behind the woman, there were 5 or 6 bald heads, as well as some people holding wooden sticks or other blunt instruments. And in front of the woman, dozens of farmers were kneeling. Rudolph lay not far away, listening carefully to what they were doing. Poems were repeated in the air. I sow in spring, sowing other people's land. I water in summer, but it's not my wheat seedlings. I want to fly with the wind, but I can't leave the soil. I harvest in winter, but I have nothing after harvesting. I have no ropes around me or shackles around my neck, but I am still like a prisoner who can't escape. I work hard every day, but I get a lot of hard work. Now, even filling my stomach has become a luxury. I don't need to see with my eyes, and I don't need to complain with my tongue. I have worked hard for a year, but I am still hungry. I eat in sorrow, I laugh in pain. Goddess of harvest, change my bad fate. I am willing to offer the most pious faith, let this land help me stay away from hunger. Over and over again, every time they sang, these people knelt down to a woman. The woman held a few ears of dried wheat in her hands. The golden wheat in her hands seemed to represent the farmer's last hope. At this time, the woman spoke. Anyone who believes in the goddess of harvest. The goddess will bless the oats to grow vigorously in winter. Anyone who does not believe in the goddess. The wheat roots buried deep in the soil will be eaten by black aphids. As if they had received some kind of promise, the farmers sang their ballads more excitedly. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 91. I have worked hard for a year, but I am still hungry. I eat in sorrow, and I laugh in pain. I don't know which bad author changed a good sonnet beyond recognition and turned it into an ugly hymn. However, the hymn was effective and resonated emotionally with the farmers. Facing the sectarian gathering of hundreds of people, Rudolph had no good solution. Let's go back first. This is not a simple grain riot. After quickly returning to the police station, Rudolph told Chief Claude about the harvest goddess and stood quietly behind him. Rudolph has been working under Sheriff Claude for almost a year. This is the first time Rudolph has seen Sheriff Claude so serious. He stood by the window and looked out over the town of Lehman. There were several smoke pillars in the distance, and there was a faint sound of clanging. I didn't know which store was in trouble again. It was obviously a peaceful time, but it felt like a war. I've been the sheriff of Lamont Township for over a dozen years, and this is the worst destruction that Lamont Township has ever seen. Rudolph also looked out the window. Someone instigated people to smash and loot. They used Molotov cocktails and burned down a dozen bakeries. They used guns and opened fire in the town of Lehman, killing 2 grain merchants openly. It is conceivable that in the future, in order to deal with these thugs, store owners in Lehman town will also have to carry guns. Although the Alchemy Council does not prohibit people from holding guns, too many people holding guns will eventually affect normal people's lives. Sheriff Claude asked, in other words, there is a belief called the harvest goddess. Yes. Their teachings are still very simple. The main teaching is this: any farmer who believes in the goddess of harvest will avoid insect plagues on his land. Anyone who does not believe in the goddess of harvest will have all their crops destroyed by insect plagues. This is a good time to spread faith. The werewolf riots and insect plagues from last year to this year have made the harvest in the fields barren. We underestimated those level 1 priests from the evil god's nest. We didn't expect them to make such a big noise. Rudolph was also a little confused. If it were just the fear of insect pests, it would be impossible to incite so many people. We have eliminated most of the insect infestation, but we have not saved the crops. Sheriff, I have seen priests of another kind of evil god, the white demon, in the wilderness. They always have shaved heads. Is it possible that several evil gods and priests are committing crimes at the same time? The sheriff nodded. I think so. The evil god Hive, the evil god White Demon, and possibly other priests, and the cooperation of multiple evil gods can have such a strong bewitching ability. If it were just a heretic apostle, then it would be fine just to kill him. If many ordinary people follow the evil god, if it is not handled well, it will turn into a more serious riot. After thinking about something, Sheriff Claude said. However, we cannot be impatient. Wait for 2 days and see what's going on in the city of Fabreau and what's going on in other towns. If possible, apply for support as much as possible. Our police department alone is unable to deal with the unknown number of evil god priests in the wilderness. Get to know the situation first, investigate first, and grasp the specific situation. Okay, got it? Rudolph left the sheriff's office, and Claude frowned alone. The more he thought about it, the more he felt something was wrong. Why was there so much chaos around Fabreau City this year? In the evening, before the town of Lehman could receive support from the city police department and judicial office, many people took refuge. Rudolph stood on the road outside the town and watched people entering Lehman town in carriages or on foot. Before the grain riots in Lehman town, the grain riots broke out in Fabreau City. Fabreau City has a larger population. Once food shortage occurs, it will be much more serious than Lehman Town. Those who thought the city was no longer safe left the city with their families. At this time, although the living conditions on the farm of poor relatives were not good, at least they had something to eat. Unlike Fabreau City, if the food supply is cut off, there will really be nothing to eat. Rudolph sighed while maintaining order. Ivan, why do I feel like eating roast goose in the Jazz Castle a few days ago, like it happened a long time ago? Yeah, I haven't eaten anything good since I left the Jazz Castle. The contrast is too strong. Many people poured into the town, which increased safety risks. Rudolph saw a group of ragged children with dirty faces entering the town of Lehman with the migrating team. Poverty makes men down and out. In the past few days, I have seen too many down and out men stealing and robbing. The darkness makes children weak, and now we see children begging. I don't think it's far away that hunger will corrupt women. Ivan just felt sorry for those little kids. After the beggars entered Lehman Town, a child who looked to be only 6 or 7 years old said to the leading child, "Zach, I'm hungry." The lead child is named Zach, and he is a few years older. This does not make him hungry. Eating the same small amount of food will only make him hungrier. Zach just turned around and glanced at a man with a stooped waist not far behind. That was the human trafficker Townsend, also known as Townsend Half-Hand, so named because he had a broken hand, and he was the master of these beggars. In his good hand, he held an ordinary-looking wooden stick, but Zach knew how painful it would be if the stick hit someone, and it was not a pain that could be endured by gritting one's teeth. After entering Lehman Town, handless Townsend first gathered all the beggars in an alley full of trash cans. Handless Townsend had a sinister look in his eyes. "Start working, I'm hungry. Also, observe this town and tell me all the situations in the town." He knocked the ground with a wooden stick to drive the beggars away. No one dared to say a word. It was this wooden stick that made many beggars disabled. Zach and other beggars said, "You must be careful. This is not a street we are familiar with. In a strange town, we don't know who we will meet." These beggars wandered on the streets, followed the gentlemen and ladies, and began to rush into shops to beg for some food. After seeing the beggars leave, Zach looked at the alley where handless Townsend was with hatred. How could he not hate? Half of these beggars were disabled because they did not complete the quotas they submitted and were disabled by handless Townsend. Disability will attract sympathy, which is useful for your begging. These are the original words of the handicapped Thompson. A few hours later, it was already dark, and there were few people on the streets that were already deserted because of the riot. A dozen beggars gathered together, trembling with fear. "What should we do, Zach? We can't fulfill the handicapped's request, oh. Zach also drooped his face. He didn't expect Lehman Town to be so poor. Now it's a mess everywhere. These beggars didn't get much food. He asked around and found out that the grain riot happened in Lehman Town yesterday, 2 days later than Fabreau City. Zach gritted his teeth. He was the oldest child here. He was already 12 years old. "Wait for me, I'll go steal. As long as I steal some money, it will be enough to pay the quota for the handicapped." Zach knew that it was almost midnight. At this time, there were 2 places where money could be stolen. One was the tavern, but those drunk people were not careful, which was a bit dangerous. The other one is the bathhouse. Zach came to the bathhouse and stared at the door, waiting for a prey to come out. He saw a man in a suit coming out and followed him.